Good afternoon. Welcome. My name is Alberto Savoia, and I have the honor of introducing Kent Beck today. Thank you for coming to this lunch. Well, if you're here, you probably know who Kent is, but just for the three of you that may not know that, he's best known as the father of extreme programming, co-author of JUnit, and pretty radical fellow. You know, introduced some revolutionary ideas. If you're familiar with extreme programming, some of those that come to mind. The idea of pair programming, kind of shocking to some people. Test first, shocking to a lot of people that didn't even test last. And of course, for people in who manage developers, the 40-hour work week was the most controversial one. We'll get over it. But the net is that whenever Kent has an idea, it's probably interesting and worth listening to. If you're interested in hearing where JUnit is going, you go to Java 1. Kent and I are giving a talk together tomorrow at 2:45 on JUnit 4 and the future of developer testing. But what you're hearing today is something very special. Is what is Kent thinking about next? Not JUnit and extreme programming is old stuff. His head is somewhere else, and if history is any indication, it's probably something interesting that will affect us for the next few years. And it's not a 30-hour work week. No. So here's Kent with Finding Ease at Work.
Thank you very much, Alberto. As Alberto said, my head is probably somewhere else. My wife, Cindy, tells me that all the time. She's joined me today. And actually, the seeds of this presentation came from watching her and her interactions on the net, watching email discussions. The most recent one was about, it's a homeschooling group, and they were discussing creationism, or as it's called now, intelligent design. There's a piece of metaphor for you. And here was the astonishing part. Here is one of the most divisive topics that you could imagine being discussed in an electronic forum, right? We've all used that excuse. Well, if this was face-to-face, I wouldn't be such a jerk. So here's this discussion going on, intense topic, intense discussion, and nobody was trying to hurt anybody in the whole discussion. Somehow, the people involved in the discussion had a sense of comfort about their own selves and their own positions and didn't need to take it out of anybody else's hide, and got me to scratching my head. I do that a lot. So thinking, well, what is it about this kind of discussion that's missing about similar discussions, geek to geek? Emacs versus VI. Why can't we have that same sense of comfort with our own positions to listen to what other people have to say, to speak what we have to say without the belligerence, without name-calling, without having to invoke the Nazi rule? Whoever calls the other person a Nazi first loses, just automatically, and the discussion's over. You know that one? So what's going on there? Well, what I discovered, and this is true of all interesting questions in my life, is when I started digging into this idea of ease, I became profoundly uncomfortable. I would rather not be thinking about this or talking about this, but it grabbed me, this idea of ease. And in fact, I'm so uncomfortable, I'm going to speak with notes, which I don't think I've ever done before. So I have enough little side comments that I wanted to make that I actually wrote some stuff down. Oh, and a piece of format. I'm going to talk for about 45 minutes, and then I would like to take questions at that time. Usually I don't mind being having questions during a presentation, but one time only, I want to get through the whole thing and then have the dialogue part for 15 or 20 minutes when we're finished. So here's the killer question. When was the last time you were comfortable in your skin as a programmer? You're just okay with who you were, what you did, your place in the world, the contributions that you made. Just, yeah, I'm okay with this. And then the corollary question is, when was the last time you were comfortable in your skin as a programmer at work? Yeah, see how I set that one up? Actually, Cindy came up with that one anyway. So we were giving a workshop at a telecoms company. And for a really rotten place to work, we had the most honesty in a big room that I'd ever seen. And one of the really honest comments is a guy raised his hand about halfway through. And I was talking about test first, and that always leads to, responsibility and accountability and XP and book sales and that kind of stuff. I mean, it just somehow naturally slips in there. I'll get to that here too. Don't worry, Stephanie. My marketing person is over there for books. Okay, the guy raises his hand and he says, "Why do I have to turn off parts of myself to work here?" I'm like, everybody needs a hanky. Raise your hand. Let's just sing Kumbaya for a minute, and we'll all be okay for the rest of the workshop. Why do I have to turn off parts of myself to work here? I'm just thinking, something is wrong. Something is profoundly wrong with a workplace where that's true, and something's profoundly wrong, I was going to say, with the person. There's something missing in that person's view. Why did you come into work today if that's how you feel? Right? That's the question. Well, why don't you expect more from your work than that? Why don't you expect more from yourself than that? And that also fed into as I started exploring these ideas, I remembered this guy and his killer question. Why is it that a sense of ease and comfort isn't part of what we expect as programmers? At home, in my office, in the corner cabinet, I have a whole shelf full of wizard sculptures, different kind of sculptures of wizard. I got the Mickey Mouse Sorcerer's Apprentice. I got the bronze guy with the marble base. I've got Wallace and Gromit, which isn't really wizard, but Wallace and Gromit are just plain cool, so that's okay. A bunch of different kind of wizards. And I always liked collecting them. I thought it's cool to have them there. But something has been bugging me for the past couple of years about this collection of wizards. Like my self-image is that I need to do magical things in order to be okay as a programmer. And so to me, thinking about it some more, I realize there's kind of a pendulum involved. There's this, on the one side is the wizard or the hero, kind of this archetypal, on the mountaintop, man against nature, person against nature. That's part of my self-image. That's what I think I should be as a programmer. And then there's this other side, which is the martyr. The 2 all-nighters in a row, and the bad health, and the horrible relationships, and that's just all part and parcel of being a programmer. It's the price I pay, sacrificing myself on the altar of technological progress. And doggone if I don't just swing back and forth between those two poles of the pendulum. I saw an interview once with, I think it was in the Mercury News, some guy had just quit working for Steve Jobs. And his comment was, I got tired of riding the genius shithead roller coaster. And I think that's maybe an earthier way to say what I'm talking about. This idea that as a programmer, there's these two poles of hero and martyr, and bouncing back and forth between them. It doesn't constitute career planning. It doesn't substitute for career planning. What I'm getting the glimmerings of, even though I can't claim to understand it very well yet, is that there's a whole nother way of being as a programmer, that I don't have to be the mythological hero, and I don't have to be a grease spot. That I can find a place in work where I can be at ease. I can be comfortable with who I am, with what I do, with the contributions that I make, with my place on teams, that I can be comfortable with how things really are. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So can I get the next slide, please? So one more. So growing up, I listened to lots of older guys give talks, and they always went back to dictionary definitions. And I'm thinking, dictionary definitions, like anybody could do that. And so for 20 years worth of talks, I never mentioned dictionary definitions. And about 2 or 3 years ago, I realized there's all kind of stuff in the dictionary. This is cool, that there's a lot of information. You know, the words that a word is related to. We don't use words at random. There's some reason behind it, and the words really mean things. And the histories of the words and the words that those words are related to say something powerful. So now my first thing I do when I start to talk about whatever it is, responsibility, accountability, I go back to the dictionary and say, well, okay, I'm going to be using this word 600-700 times in a half an hour. Maybe I should know what it means. So, ease. I wanted to look up ease and see what it meant. It turns out that there's two families of meanings, one of which is not what I mean at all, and the other of which is very much what I mean. So, first meaning that I don't mean, at least not mostly, is freedom from constraint. I'm at ease. I can do anything I want to. I can just lay in this hammock and drink beer all afternoon. No constraints. That is not the work world. Part of the work world is, part of the contract is that you accept constraints. If you receive value from someone, you accept the constraint of creating value. That's part of the contract. So I'm not talking about a life without constraints. Embarrassment is a little bit different topic, and I'll get into that a little bit later. Next. I do not mean freedom from difficult, hard work and effort. One of the things I find when I think back to the times I was at ease as a programmer is it's some of the hardest working times. At the end of it, end of a day, I could be really exhausted. At the end of a week, I could be really exhausted, but still at ease. So this isn't about a life of leisure. This is not a call for the 30-hour week for programmers. Ease at work has nothing to do with taking it easy in the sense that I'm using it. Ease at work, it means something very different. Next. And finally, this is certainly out of scope for a 1-hour talk. although a half-hour infomercial can probably fix this for you, but for one of my talks, for now, I think actually you have to be free from financial difficulty before you can teach other people. Except if you sell the advice for how to get free, and then you can be, anyway. So I'm not talking about the life of ease, you know, the prototypical English fop with the independent income. That's also not what I'm talking about, ease at work. There's lots of ways that y'all can address that on your own. So next. That's the negative. The positive, here's what I am talking about when I say ease at work. The first is this sense of comfort. I belong here. It's okay for me to be here, who I am, doing what I'm doing. And I think one of the sad things when I think about my own career is how much of my work life I have spent not feeling that way about what I'm doing. It's not okay to be me. It's not okay to be doing what I'm doing. It's not okay to have my skills or my limitations here, that I'm just not comfortable in my own skin most of the time when I'm working. And I think that's a shame. I think that a lot of potential is wasted on the worry that comes along with that. Next. So this is, I think, an important part of it. Freedom from worry, pain, or agitation. That the times at work when I'm agitated, when I'm just going from one thing to another and I never quite finish anything before I start the next thing, those aren't productive times. Those aren't times that I feel comfortable about myself. Oftentimes the lack of comfort is what fuels that agitation. Oh, you know, that we have so much to do, there's no way I'm going to get it all done, so I'm going to do half of all of the tasks that I have on my plate, and that will solve the problem. This is such a useless work strategy, but it doesn't mean I learn and stop doing it. I can do that over and over again. But I think there's enormous potential wasted out of that kind of that sense of agitation or pain or worry. Oh, what if I'm just not good enough for this? Oh, what if the customers really don't want anything like it, not even our current product? What if the customers don't want any kind of product we could possibly imagine ever implementing? Now, part of what's wrong with this dis-ease, this lack of ease, is it just doesn't match reality. What are the chances that a group of smart people sitting around a table thinking about what product are we going to come up with, what are the chances that no idea we could come up with in the next 10 years has any commercial potential? Zero. And yet, what do I do sitting around the table going, nobody's going to buy this, and nobody's going to buy anything that we do, and we might as well all just pick your favorite, fries with that, pick your favorite alternative career. It's just not realistic to think that creative, experienced, smart people can't come up with good ideas. And yet, somehow I convince myself in my dis-ease that that's the case. That nothing's going to work and we're not going to get it. Next. The last sense of ease that I like, and I won't talk about it too much because it's just too attractive to me as a geek, is the sense of facility in work. The Michael Jordan, the Wayne Gretzky, who just does impossible stuff with no apparent effort whatsoever. That's a sense of ease that I am talking about, that I think is part and parcel of being comfortable. If I want to be comfortable in my skin as a programmer, being a good programmer is part of that. If I was a really horrible programmer and I was comfortable with that, I think something would be wrong. Although I think probably I have met people like that. So what I'm talking about when I talk about ease is on the left, your left, my left when I'm facing this way. Do you ever wonder about clockwise and counterclockwise and think, which way am I looking? Turn the screw clockwise, right? And I always think, am I the screwdriver or am I the screw? Nobody else has this problem. Okay. End of aside. So there on the left is the distinction I'm trying to make here in talking about the kind of ease I'm talking about is the distinction between fun and joy. Fun is an ephemeral emotion. I feel it right now. It doesn't have deep roots. It doesn't really go anywhere. It doesn't feed me in any deep way. It feels good. I like having fun. But it's different than joy. To me, joy is a deep emotion. It's something that lasts. It's something that's satisfying. It's something I can look back on and say, what a great talk we had. I can get a sense of joy out of it. You can have joy even if you don't have fun. You could have a really serious, conflict-filled, intense discussion with somebody and come out of it with a sense of joy even if it wasn't fun while you were doing it. It's also kind of the difference between Great America, you know, the theme park, and Yosemite. Great America's fun. Oh yeah, thrill a minute, flip upside down, do all kind of crazy stuff, yell and scream. But at the end of the day, you haven't changed any. You're a day older. You had some fun, but nothing has changed. Yosemite National Park, you go to it and it can change you as a person. Some people even get married as a result. So just warning you to be careful about that one. I met my wife in Yosemite, so. You'll have to meet your own wives in Yosemite, though. Mine's taken. So that's the difference. I'm not talking, this isn't, again, a clarion call to bring the fun back into programming, because after all, programmers need to be fed potato chips and have lots of fun. This is more a call to look for a deeper sense of satisfaction in what we do as programmers. Not just some surface thing, but really looking for what's going to make a big difference. What's going to change about the way we look at ourselves and the way we look at our work so that we can gain lasting satisfaction out of what we do. Next, please. So why is this an issue at all? What's the big deal? We got along without ease for the first half century of programming. What's changed so that the status quo won't work anymore? Actually, I'm not sure that the status quo won't work. That as an industry we could keep focusing on the hero-martyr pendulum and stay on that roller coaster for an indefinite period. But eventually, I don't know, maybe it's just aging. I just get tired of it. I wish for a sense of comfort with myself and my work and what I'm doing. I think there's the next generation of programmers coming up. Some of them, at least, don't have that same sense of dis-ease with with what they're doing as programmers. They're not necessarily on the pendulum in that same way. But certainly my generation of programmers, the people that I know well and have worked with for a long time, have built in very deeply this sense of, I'm not okay unless I'm a hero, and if I'm not a hero, I must be a schmuck. And so let me pretend some other stuff so I can be a hero again. Oh no, I'm really a schmuck, and back and forth and back and forth. Keeping that swinging takes an enormous amount of energy. Primarily because it doesn't match reality very well. Neither of those cartoons is an accurate reflection of the world of work. Most people are not heroes every day. Most people are not complete schmucks every day. It's generally speaking in the middle. And the effort needed to maintain the gap between the illusion and reality is energy completely wasted. Think of all the refactorings, cool refactorings you could do if you weren't spending all of your time convincing yourself that you were either better or worse than you really are. The cool tools that you could write, the fabulous posts that you could put on the net, whatever it is that excites you about programming, the energy that goes into maintaining this bipolar illusion gets in the way of accomplishing real stuff. And for me, that's why ease matters. That's why it's worth me working on it in my own career and talking about it. Because if I don't work on it, if I don't think about it, if I don't talk about it with people that I trust, I'm just going to be looking back on a career spent only occasionally in the middle, really getting stuff done. And most of the time, my energy's going to swinging back and forth. And I'd like to not do that. I can't give you an ROI argument for ease. This isn't a strict economic issue. I don't think it turns on how much more profit your companies could make. Or programmers at ease make 10% more on average than programmers who have a skewed self-perception. It's not that kind of thing. This is more about, we have this community of people. They spend a lot of time pretending. It would just be better for everybody if we could stop. So my goal is to feel ready and confident to meet the challenges that I see. To feel like, okay, I don't know exactly what's going to happen here, but that's all right. Because I'm confident in my skills, I'm confident in myself, I'm confident in my relationships with my teammates. We'll be okay. Something like this has come up recently, a project that we have code with one API, and we're trying to transform it so it matches a different API. And it's not clear that we're going to be able to do it. But what is clear, that we won't be able to match the other API exactly. We're just kind of solving similar problems, but a little bit different. But there's a sense in this particular project in which I'm at ease with this project. It's okay if we don't have a perfect solution. I know that we can get very close. I just don't know how close. The guy I'm working with is very sharp, and I have a lot of confidence in his ability to do work, in our ability together to discuss it in productive ways. And I think, okay, we're going to do something good out of that. That's a great feeling to bring into a project. And a lot of the dysfunctions in relationships, I think, just get short-circuited when you have that sense of ease. as opposed to, oh no, this is going to be a failure. How can I make sure that you get blamed for it? Yeah, that's a skill that lots of programmers, myself included, developed to a fine art. And you know what? It doesn't get a single line of code written. All the energy that I spend thinking how I'm going to shaft you when this goes down is energy I'm not spending on creating value. What a waste of time. Next. So, this is a brainstorming kind of question. What do programmers do? What do programmers do in the world? Program, write code. What else? Create models. What else? Solve problems. Learn what to make. Document. Some programmers. Test. Get stressed out. Okay? What? To know or learn what others have done? What? Decompiling. It's a particular strategy for learning what others have done. Communicate. Show off. Yeah. Deploy. Change the world. That's the most amazing thing to me about programming. Here is this thing that I love doing, that I would do for free if I couldn't get paid for it. Maybe that's part of the problem. And the fact is that programs can change the world. Right? There's a program in here. Changes my ability to communicate with a large number of people. So at the same time, programs alone don't change the world. Right? I work for Agitar part-time. Just producing the software that we produce, the tools that we produce, doesn't change the world. It's part of a bigger process. If it weren't for sales, if it weren't for marketing, if it weren't for finance, if it weren't for the people sending out the bills, nothing we do would make any difference in the world. So the question for me, and this is the one I'm working on, is can I be comfortable with changing the world and not being able to do it alone? Can I get okay with that? Because I think if I can, I will write much better programs. I will live a much better life. And the significance of what I do will go up dramatically. That's the challenge. Can I be okay with both the immense power of what I do and the enormous limitations of what I do? Next. So, what could you do if you wanted to go do something now? You're fired up, you say, oh, this ease thing, not easy, boss. I'm not talking about easy, I just want to be comfortable. What is it that you could go and do that would contribute to your own sense of ease? So this is my list for me. I recommend that you make your own list. Number one is acting responsibly. I am at ease when I'm acting responsibly. When my code works. When the work that I do is important to somebody else. When I make public commitments. When I call my shots. When I say in public, here is what I'm going to do. This is my commitment to my team, to my boss, to my customers. Here's what I'm going to do. That one was real counterintuitive to me. I thought the less information I publish, the more comfortable I am. And then I discovered, and then I got real good at not publishing information. Can I have a date for a date? Nah, maybe Friday. Right? All of this kind of, I'm gonna hold the information close. What I discovered is, every time I held some information close to my chest, I was afraid that somebody else was going to find out and call me on it. And that's the sense in the definition slide when I talked about embarrassment. I think the ease I'm talking about is a freedom from fear of embarrassment. If I publish all of the public information about my activities on a project, I don't have to be afraid of anybody embarrassing me with any comment. I also have to be careful not to keep private all the private information. That is, I'm not just saying you come in and give a detailed list of how many toothbrush strokes or whatever other private information you have in your life. It's not germane to software development. But on projects, information that matters for other people, the degree to which I publish that is a degree to which I volunteer that is a degree to which I feel at ease about my place on the project. Oh, yeah, as soon as I know a date's going to slip, I'll say the date's going to slip. If I go crazy for a little bit, and it is crazy, and think, well, the date's going to slip, but I'm not going to say anything yet, I have a period of dis-ease until I come clean. And what I'm learning is the shorter the period, the less discomfort I have to inflict on myself. And it's really completely self-inflicted. As soon as I find out some information that's pertinent to the project, I publish it. In the best way I can, a way that somebody else can understand it. Then I have a sense of comfort about the project. Not, well, I heard that you're going to slip, but you haven't told anybody yet. Or schedule chicken. You know schedule chicken? It's when chicken is a game where you throw the knife at each other's feet, and the person who moves his foot first doesn't bleed, but he's also the chicken. This is a guy game, by the way. So that schedule chicken is when you're sitting around the table and everybody knows that you're going to slip, but nobody's said it. And so you just give them that steely-eyed, the 7-card stud stare. And eventually, somebody cracks. All right, my project's in trouble, we're going to slip. And everybody goes, sucker, you just couldn't handle the pressure. So what if you flip that? Now, how comfortable is everybody sitting around the table? Everybody, not just the guy who cracks. Everybody, how comfortable are you? How at ease are you? When it feels terrible. You just hope that it feels worse for somebody else. So what if you flip that around and you said, no, as soon as I know that my part of the project's going to slip, I'm going to raise my hand. Even if you choose to be the sucker in that case. You're the patsy. You're the person who's going to draw down the wrath of heaven on your own head, but you're comfortable about it because you're in control. You're saying your stuff. You don't have to worry about anybody else saying, oh, well, I think you're going to slip. You say, oh, yeah, I said that 2 weeks ago. It was clear. It was on the table. Now, it might be weird the first 2, 10, 50 times you did it. People are like, what is up with him? But eventually, somebody's going to notice that you're cool with yourself. Yeah, I'm saying what's going on in my project. And I don't care who knows it. I would like everybody to know it who needs this information. Oh, well, that's kind of different. Maybe I'll try that. Cindy tells me that people have to hear an idea 13 times on average before they get it. So you'll notice I say stuff over and over and over again. It gets kind of boring, but if you stop at 12, you got no influence. So this is this kind of thing. Just the 13th time somebody else has been honest in a meeting, you think, I'll just try it. Who knows? And that's when the ball starts rolling. Then if you got 13 people around the table all being honest, the next guy comes in, boom, you got him. That's cool. I won't go into any more detail on this. Just to mention this, appropriately valuing feedback. That is positive and negative. I have been known to take a stack of 200 workshop participant feedback review forms and pick out the 3 that say I'm a complete waste of electrons, and throw away the other 197 and put the 3 up on my wall. I don't think that's a very realistic perspective. I'm just looking for reasons to beat myself up. That is a great example of dis-ease, or to shorten it, disease. To take feedback that much out of context. It's same is true of the flip side. If somebody tells you, oh, this is the most wonderful thing I've ever seen, I've never seen code like this, you'll probably get the Pulitzer and the Nobel Prize for this, that's a real good time to be thinking, what motivation could this person possibly have to be saying something like this? That's a skill that I'm still developing, but it comes in real handy, and you miss it when you lose it. But to think about, okay, I'm getting this feedback, not only what does it mean for me, but what is this feedback meaning for the other person? You can get a lot of information out of that. But I can do that much easier when I'm at ease with myself, when I have that sense of comfort. I want to close with just a little bit of information about sustaining change. I know in my own life that pursuing a sense of ease in my work is a large-scale change. I have to change my behaviors. I have to change my beliefs. I have to change, in some cases, my business model. It's a large-scale change in what I do to pursue a sense of ease in my work. And I suspect that'll be true for a lot of other people as well. Making changes is easy, right? Quitting smoking is easy. I've done it 50 times. Quitting smoking is not the hard part. Sustaining quitting smoking is the hard part. Sustaining any kind of change you make, whether it's starting to test first because you just want to be comfortable that your code does what you think it does, or a more open planning process, or whatever change you're making to move towards a sense of ease, sustaining that change is going to be difficult because a lot of people, you included, expect you to be doing something else, believing something else, acting in a different way. And when that changes, everybody gets a little bit ruffled. So the 2 things I know that make change sustainable for me, one is public commitment to say, I am making this change. I'm going to start to test first. I'm going to have a more open planning process. I'm going to stop working when I get tired. If I just tell myself that's true, then when I'm tired, but I really should, if I was only a good person, I should get some more accomplished today, I'll just think, who's going to know? But if I told Jeff, I'm just on the treadmill, I'm working too many hours, I got to stop working when I'm subtracting value, and I make that commitment to you. Friday, I'm going to check in with you and tell you how I did with it. Then when it's Wednesday afternoon, I know, man, I made a public, even this much public commitment, one other person, to making that change, and I can use that to sustain myself. And the second part of it is accountability, that on Friday you're going to check in with me and you're going to say, hey, how did your work hours go this week? And then if I really want to make the change, if I made a mistake, I'm just going to own up to it. No blame, no excuses. It's a little bit, these are the same principles that are under something like Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Hi, my name is Kent. I overwork. Thank you. Yes, somebody's been to a meeting. Thank you. And so you say it's been 6 weeks and 3 days since my last overwork. Oh, yeah, okay, hi, Kent. No, then, or I say it's been 3 days since my last overwork, and now the process becomes one of accountability. I need to say what I did. It was this time, I made these choices, I worked this late, I broke the bill the following 6 really interesting ways. Now already I'm shading it, right? I'm trying to make it like I'm contributing to everyone else's life by making them fix the build, which isn't true. You know, here are all the consequences of what I did. It's nobody's fault but mine. These were the choices that I made. That's going to keep me on the straight and narrow. Going to help me sustain the changes that I want to make and to see play out in my life, even when it's difficult. And when I make mistakes, I'll be able to learn from them if I open myself up in that process. If I say, here's what's really going on. Here's what really happened. Here are the decisions and the actions that I made. And again, that's fine. That's kind of a new process for me sometimes, and it's very difficult, but it's also freeing. Once you go through it, you know that it's over and done, which is a great feeling. I screwed up. Here's exactly what I did. Let me listen to the consequences for everybody else. Now we're finished with that. Not, here's what I did, and it's really not so bad, and besides, it was your fault anyway, and da-da-da-da-da. And then I go home, and I'm still thinking about it. No, you get it out on the table, you have the talk about it, you listen, and then you can move on. So, this is such a new idea that I don't have the big dramatic closer slide yet. But that's what I have to say about ease at work. I think that programmers as a group, and I'm certainly a good example of this, spent a lot of time acting entitled to things that I spent a lot of time acting entitled to things that I wasn't entitled to. I acted like I should just get lots of money, much more money than a kindergarten teacher, somebody who makes significant contributions to society. It was right that I made 10 times as much as a kindergarten teacher. Sometimes even it was the flip side. I wasn't making very much money, but I should act like I did. That wizard. The wizard can do no wrong. So that's sometimes the entitlement is in terms of social entitlement. I don't have to dress like other people. I don't have to talk like other people. I can be rude and demanding. And because I'm a wizard, right, what are you going to do about it? The funny thing for me is that the one thing I was entitled to, I never laid claim to, and that was self-respect. To be able to say, I'm okay doing what I do. And I would really like to be able to do that. So that's where I'm going now. After a minute, are there any questions? Yeah, I don't have any question in my mind that there's big economic impacts to individually or as teams achieving that sense of ease in work. But my point is that that's not the issue. That's not the driver. That it's something that everybody should be able to have. And then once we, now I'm getting histrionic a little bit, once we claim the birthright, there's going to be a lot of positive consequences that flow from that. But doing it because you make more money just seems to me like missing the point entirely. Yes. So what's the change in the newer generation? I think it's people for whom computers aren't technology. They're not so my daughter is not so enormously impressed with a computer just because it's a computer. For me, it's technology because it wasn't there when I was born. It came in, computers as a part of everyday life came in as I was living. But she can't remember a time when there weren't computers. So this sense of specialness, oh, I'm special, elevated, different, other, because I can do computers. Everybody does computers in her generation. I think it's somewhere in there. Yes? Yeah, if you had a balanced... So the comment is about this hero-martyr pendulum becomes organizationally addictive, because the people who can swing the pendulum further get more money and more prestige, and they get to do cooler projects. And so here's the weirdness. If you have an accurate self-image about what you're capable of doing and your place in the organization, you're a loser. It's the people who can spin ever wilder and wilder stories that are the cool winners. And I think on the short term, absolutely it's true. And on the long term, I'm betting that it's not. The more balanced I get, I'm hoping I'm getting more balanced, the better my work gets. One very practical thing I noticed is I used to work very hard for my ideas. I would, if I needed some idea for some cool way of doing something, man, I would just pound. I would, I wouldn't take bathroom breaks. I would just go after that idea, and I'd get the idea, and I am a hero because I, and only I, could have ever had this idea. I am the best programmer in the world. It's exhausting. And what I noticed is the less the pendulum swings, the easier the ideas come. It's like, oh, I need an idea about this. Let's have a coffee. Oh, yeah. Well, what would that be? Oh, it would be like this. And there's no drama in that, right? There's not that mountaintop experience. I'm not poised with the dagger over my heart just because I can't figure out how to set up the class paths for this. You guys have done that too? I'm telling you, I took my job way too seriously. But, right, it's almost not an exaggeration. But when I just say, oh, yeah, we need an idea for what to do with these class paths, and then we go have a coffee, then you come back and you fix it. And, yeah, I miss the drama. Sure, I got addicted to that adrenaline rush. But, eventually standing on the ledge just gets breezy. And that's all. And I'd rather have more ideas. So, yeah. Yeah, so the question is the relationship of this to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You'd have to talk to Cindy about that. She's the psychologist in the family. Me, I'm just trying to keep going programming. Yeah, programming so you can feel like a hero is a whole lot different than programming so you have a program. Yeah, and I think there are probably strong connections with that. And I use Maslow's hierarchy some, but I don't claim to understand it deeply. But that seems like there are connections there. Yeah. I think that there's that sense of ease with. If I'm at ease with myself, then I don't mind explaining to my friend the carpenter what it is I do. It's when I'm thinking to myself, all I do is change bits. Any monkey could do this, and then my, Harry comes and says, "Well, what'd you do today?" And I think, "Oh, it's way too complicated to explain to you." Right, which is not a relationship-building move. Number one. Number two is simply not true, because he's a smart, thoughtful guy, and I could explain what I was doing. So that's that sense of trying to put on the pointy hat, and wear the hair funny and use jargon and ignore social convention. All that stuff is just I'm trying to build layers and layers of masks, and I think better programs will come out of not wasting energy on all those layers of makeup. Yeah, William. No, I'm getting, I think, better at putting myself into useful trouble. Although I'd never thought of it as that phrase. I'm going to remember that phrase because I need it. Sometimes. I think that, so one of the things I learned recently out of a particularly intense session of programming is I'm a programmer. This is who I am, what I do. And what's more natural for a programmer than to write programs? It's unnatural if I don't write programs, just because of who I am and what I do. So from that perspective, I think I go find that useful trouble as a natural consequence. It was, the story that came to my mind is I was reading a book about acceptance, just the acceptance of things as they are. And somebody asked this woman who was promoting this idea that you really need to just accept things as they are. Well, what if you're in the desert and you see a tin can laying on the ground? Do you accept that? You know, you just say, oh, there's a tin can on the ground and walk away? And she'd say, well, I don't get angry because who threw this tin can here and didn't they respect the nature and I say, oh, well, there's a tin can on the ground. I'm going to pick it up. It's a perfectly natural expression of order and the universe and, you know, sort of who I am. I like making things better. So, of course, I would pick this up. But it's not that I say, oh, you know, it's not drama. It's not crusading Kent saves the desert. It's just picking up a tin can, which is what it is, and it's perfectly natural. And I think, to me, that's the same kind of thing. Out of programs, I think I'm still getting used to it, but I'm going after, again, more aggressive, more difficult, more challenging programs now than I have been for a while. Because if I fail, it doesn't mean that I'm an idiot. It just means that I didn't program that. Oh, okay, fine. So I learned something and I can move on. Yeah, in the back. Somebody called them novelty vampires. You're just always looking to suck the new out of the world. You're just always, it's got to be something new all the time. And right, as technology. But there's a difference between doing something new because it's better and doing something new just because, you know, I'm 45, you know, kids now learn no languages I don't know, blah, 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 I'm afraid. Right? If my motivation is fear of being left behind, then I think I get into more of this pathology. Oh, I'm going to use Ruby on Rails for this project just because if I don't do it now, everybody else will know Rails and I won't know Rails. I told you I take my job way too seriously. So that's a very different gesture than, okay, here I am, I have a project, I've heard about Rails, I really like what I hear about it, the ideas seem interesting, I'm ready at the moment for learning, I'm eager to go and find something out, the client for this project, if we have hiccups, it's not a big deal, so I'm just going to go and do it as a natural expression of who I am as a programmer. I like learning new technologies. To me, those, even though the act, let's use Rails for this project, just to pick on a sort of new technology, even though the act is the same, the motivations are completely different, and I would expect the outcomes to be very different as well. Yes? So the question is about how do you sustain the sense of joy. I think the first one is it's a whole lot easier if you have an accurate self-image. If you're swinging the pendulum, you just get tired of swinging. You don't have time to learn new technology. You don't have energy to learn new technology if you're going back and forth between the hero and the idiot. So maintaining that sense of self that says, yes, what I do changes the world, but I also rely on a lot of other people, and together we can change the world in these ways and not in these other ways. Having that sense seems to me to be the number one key to sustaining that sense of joy. And freshness is an interesting topic because it can be really this pathological search for freshness. Always the new, 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 without ever really enjoying what you have now. But you can do almost the same actions, but from a very different place, where you say, I'm a member of a community of people, millions of people creating technology, and I want to be involved in that. So naturally, as a consequence of that, I'm going to try out some brand new things. I'm going to try out some stuff that's been around for a while. I'll do some projects in older technologies. It's just a consequence of being in this whole community. And to me, if I keep my self-image accurate and kind of in balance. By the way, shoveling horse manure is a super, super way to do this. Okay, I'll get to it in a second. Actually going out, and we have a horse at our farm, and going out and doing something physical that's smelly, but it washes off. It's really important. Keeps me like, okay, yeah, this is my place in the world. Sometimes I write books, sometimes I write programs that change the world, and sometimes I shovel horse manure. Oh, okay, that's cool. Now, in that context, having kids is also a really good way to do this because you figure out, okay, yeah, sometimes a respected guru author, yada, 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 sometimes cleaning up spit up. Okay, cool. Yeah, in a balanced life will have some of all of those. So, yes. No, I think that is the pathology of our industry, is this collective insanity that things can't just be okay, right? That okay means something is horribly, horribly wrong. And so this came up in a phone conversation yesterday. A company signed a contract. They wanted software that worked really well in August. And last week they said we were going live at the end of this week. And the answer was, wow, that's not my problem. In the sense that that doesn't change my worth as a programmer. It doesn't shove me 1 millimeter on the pendulum that somebody said, no, not August, May. That's something about them and their needs, and now we can have a conversation about it. But if the software isn't production ready at the end of this week, it doesn't mean anything about me. And maintaining that sense of boundaries, to me, that's the first step, and is also something I'm working hard to improve, which is another way of saying I'm usually really, really bad at it. But being able to say, okay, I understand that you need something by the end of the week. Here's where we are, realistically today. Here's what I can here's the kind of things I could accomplish in a week that seem to me in the direction that you need. What does that sound like to you? Okay, that attempt, I don't know, is that an attempt to push you off of feeling at ease? Yeah, I think so. Could be. It could be an attempt to just say, oh, a happy programmer is a powerful programmer, and we don't want that around. If it was that, I mean, in any case, responding, that's the beginning. The worst thing about this talk is I don't have it all worked out. But that's also part of being okay with not having it all worked out. So I'm practicing even as I try and inarticulately answer your question. Oh, that's one of the rules of effective conversation, by the way, is allowing somebody to be inarticulate. So thank you all for bearing with me, those of you who are. Somebody trying to mess with my sense of ease, from my perspective, is the beginning of a conversation, not the end of a conversation. Okay, so I said things are going really well, and now I hear you changing all the rules. So what's up with that? What are you trying to accomplish here now? What is it that you really need? What is it that you need that you're not getting? Well, you can have a conversation about that. And maybe there's something real. Maybe it is somebody just yanking your chain. But if you don't have the conversation, you'll never find out. But the one I have to remind myself is just because somebody else says they want something impossible doesn't mean that I'm a schmuck if I can't do it. So, how much more time, Alberto? 0. Okay.